Hi, hello and welcome back to another episode. Welcome back to another episode in our deep dive into The Gift of Therapy by Irvin Yalom. It's laying right here. What is also laying right here is my homie Tora. So if we have some interruptions in this video by a lot of meows or by somebody destroying my microphone like she's prone to do, we know what's going on. Tip 8. Let the patient matter to you. Yalom talks about a sad occurrence he experienced with a psychoanalytical group therapist in London. Psychoanalytical group therapist who told Yalom, "I've had the same group for 10 years. Now it's time to disband. It's time to get rid of this group. It has lived its life." And the group members were like, "We've experienced some beautiful stuff during these 10 years. We've really changed a lot. We've developed as persons. The only thing that is still exactly the same is you," directed at the psychoanalytical group therapist. And that group therapist was like, "Yeah, that's nice, that's beautiful, that's great technique. I did a great job in this group." And Yalom was, I'm not gonna say disgusted because that's not how we called it in the book, but I think he was disgruntled to say the least. Like, that's not at all what he sees as good technique or as a goal you should strive towards. Yalom is an advocate for being touched, influenced, impacted, and changed by the client, and also communicating this to them, to your clients. A good therapy changes both client and therapist. Don't keep your walls up so high that the therapy doesn't impact you or doesn't change you at all, that what the client sends out to you does not reach you internally. He also goes on about an example in his own therapeutic life where he had a client that was convinced that Yalom hated him, convinced that Yalom found the client repulsive, and they had to end off the session. So that feeling was kind of brooding in Yalom's mind, and he brooded on it quite a lot before the next session and gave it back to the client, how much that disturbed him. The woman then tried to assure him that she was actually talking about what they were discussing and how she found that disgusting and didn't mean to direct it at Yalom. But regardless of this miscommunication, it kind of solved it immediately. She was very touched. She was happily surprised by Yalom's honesty, Yalom's openness, and Yalom's humanity in revealing that this also hit him internally so much. It made her take more risks and open up more in the following sessions, according to Yalom. The question clients often ask, also to me, but also to Yalom, to I think every therapist, is like whether they are just another name in our agenda, just another file in our electronic file cabinet or digital file system, whether they are just another number for us, or whether they impact our lives, whether they are present in our memories, in our day-to-day lives, whether we give them some thought in between sessions, or whether we just have those 50 minutes during the week for them and that's it. Of course you do. Of course you do. Or of course at least I do. And Yalom does as well. And as you know, I think that's a good sign. Yalom says in the book, self-disclosure of the therapist leads to self-disclosure of the patient. Showing your humanity, your vulnerability, sometimes your openness, kind of elicits those same things in the client, in the person sitting across from you. And those are goals you want to achieve. You want to elicit openness, authenticity, realness. You want to know what's going on under the hood. Yalom often also dreams about the clients that he's having, and he reveals this as well to them. But it's all according to one rule. There's one rule he imposes, and that is that it has to seem helpful or beneficial for the process of the client to reveal, to self-disclose. Don't just do it for the sport of it. He gives an example about meeting one of his clients in an airport in a dream and trying to hug her, but not being able to hug her because her handbag was so large that it kind of intruded in the space between them and they were not able to put each other's arms around each other. He saw this as her big baggage, her trauma, kind of driving a stake in between them, building up a wall in between them and eliciting or facilitating disconnection. She saw it as the whole ordeal of being in therapy, the whole ordeal of the client-therapist relationship. She clearly hadn't read the book because she didn't know that she was just a fellow traveler, and the fact that she had to pay in order to get Yalom's attention as the barrier between them. And she associated that with the dream message because in her purse that was blocking the hug between them is of course her wallet. She goes even further and she sees it as Yalom wanting more in their relationship than just a therapist-client relationship. And Yalom's like, it's an interesting interpretation, but I don't think that's really true. And his brutal honesty comes up again in the book, of course. He tells, well, maybe those are some feelings that I have somewhere deep down in the back, in the dungeons of my mind. He's a naughty boy. He's not a naughty boy, he's an honest boy, he's an honest man, he's a therapist, he's an honest, authentic therapist, and sex or over-sexualizing really has nothing to do with it. The main point is that the client impacted him enough to even dream about, and he wanted to share that in order to help her process. My thoughts about the subject, well, it's another one of those tips really that I've heard so often already and that I've internalized to such an extent that it's quite hard to give any critical remarks about it really, because it's part of how I work. Of course I let the client touch me, of course I get impacted by the therapeutic relationship and by what happens in our sessions, and of course I put an emphasis on both the client and the therapist being changed. But that's just like how I see therapy. It's kind of ingrained in my idea of what therapy is supposed to be already. I often tell my clients as well that it's very normal and even useful probably to get impacted on my side by the therapy, especially when I get emotional or I'm on the brink of emotion during the sessions. I tell them that it's very normal and that it should happen because their story is touching, and I want to be honest and open about how touching their story actually is. Or when I, for example, tell them that I was quite sorry to hear that they had a family emergency that impeded them from getting to the session. I come back on it the next session. I tell them like, yeah, it kind of hit me. I hope everything's all right. And one particular example definitely also came to mind of a client, kind of a vulnerable girl with 3 older brothers. Now, I knew for a fact that her older brothers were amazing, that they were supportive, that they were understanding, that they were protective in a healthy sense, that they were there to support her throughout all her endeavors, which is a university education right now. And she told me, when we were reviewing our therapy sessions together a little bit, she told me how I kind of became that 4th older brother, that I kind of just lined up with the 3 of them and became another one of those supportive figures. And I got close to crying, and I definitely also told her, wow, that image really struck me, that image really hits me in my own feelings, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful metaphor of what a therapist can be like. It seemed healthy to me. I think some people will back away from that and tell her like, whoa, that's becoming way too close. That means that our distance between us is not large enough anymore, and the therapeutic relationship, the boundaries are fading to a too large extent. But I just thought this is magical, and this is the beauty of therapy. I've really become a part of her life in a positive way. And this whole idea of being impacted by clients and being open about that is very closely related to another book I read called The Naked Therapist, or The Naakte Therapeut by Peter Rolber, another Dutch working in Leuven psychotherapist that really inspires me, and it's a great book. I've made a video on it as well. You can check it out somewhere over here or something. I don't know. I don't even include links, so not somewhere over here, but this is the thumbnail, and then you can just look it up. I don't know, man. A valuable tip, to say the least. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.